Marcus sits in a conference room, watching an attorney explain how a billionaire paid less in federal tax last year than Marcus's annual salary. Legally, deliberately, by design. Nobody in the room looks surprised. Marcus is the only one whose hands are shaking. Marcus sits in the parking garage for 11 minutes without moving, not thinking, rearranging, because something just broke open in the way he understood the world. This was not luck. This was a system. My name is Marcus. I spend way too much time uncovering the system that makes the rich richer, not the visible parts, but the invisible mechanics underneath. This is what I will be talking about today. If nobody has ever shown you how the wealthy actually move their money, do me one quick favor and hit that subscribe button, because what I am about to walk you through is exactly how they do. Marcus and Henry, same neighborhood growing up, same industry, salaries within $3,000 of each other at 26, same starting point on paper. Everything else completely different. First paycheck celebration. Marcus buys the expensive round for 6 people. Henry orders 1 drink and spends 2 hours asking their older colleague questions about his investment portfolio. Marcus notices Henry talking, but does not attach importance to it. 8 months in, both Marcus and Henry receive $8,000 bonuses. Same amount, same day. Marcus immediately thinks about what to do with it, pays the tax without question, $2,200, and plans the rest. Henry receives the same $8,000 bonus. Before touching it, he asks 3 questions. Tax efficiency, asset income, compounding structure. 3 questions Marcus never asked. Those 3 questions change everything. Marcus's $8,000, tax paid, laptop bought, trip taken, $1,400 in savings. Henry's $8,000, tax reduced through smart structure, all of it deployed into compounding assets. Same bonus. 2 completely different destinations. 5 years in, Marcus earns more every year, but his actual wealth barely moves. He works harder. The number does not respond proportionally. He is running faster on the same treadmill. He does not understand the treadmill yet. A colleague mentions Henry is looking at properties. Marcus's fork stops midair. They earn the same salary. A property should not be possible. Something does not add up. For the first time, Marcus starts paying serious attention. Henry at 27 is buying a property. The rental income covers most of the mortgage from day one. The asset pays for itself. Marcus has no idea this is possible on their salary, because Marcus never asked the 3 questions. Marcus and Henry at lunch. Marcus puts his fork down and asks directly, "How are you buying property?" "We make the same money." Henry looks at him across the table, then says a sentence that changes everything. Henry says it's simply, "We make the same income." That is not the same thing as the same money. Marcus stares at him. He wants to argue. He cannot, because the property proves a distinction before any argument can. Henry picks up a paper napkin, places it flat on the table, picks up a pen. Marcus leans forward before Henry has drawn a single line. Something in Marcus already knows what is about to happen matters. Henry draws 2 things on the napkin. A straight line, income straight to lifestyle. That is most people. Then 4 boxes connected by arrows. Income, asset leverage, structure. That is the system. The whole difference between 2 people earning the same salary. Henry explains the 4 boxes calmly. Income into an asset. Asset generates income. That income services leverage that acquires more assets. Structure reduces what leaves at every step. Marcus looks for the missing element. There is none. The napkin is complete. Marcus drives home with the napkin in his pocket. He did not tell Henry he kept it. He just kept it for boxes. 2 lines. The system that makes the rich richer, drawn on a lunch napkin by a friend who earns $3,000 less per year. Marcus runs every financial decision of the last 5 years through the 4 boxes. Every bonus spent never entered the asset box. Every tax paid without structure left the system permanently. 5 years of earning good money. Barely anything billed. Same salary. Different system. Completely different outcome. The straight line Marcus has been on is not wrong. It is just missing the other 3 boxes. The system was always available. Nobody drew the napkin from Marcus until today. Marcus cannot sleep. Not anger, calculation. Running 5 years of decisions through 4 boxes all night. The calculation is not comfortable, but it is honest, and honest is where the change starts. Before 8 in the morning, Marcus calls Henry. He says, I need to understand a napkin properly, not the overview, the actual how. Henry is quiet for a moment, then asks, are you sure? Because understanding it means changing everything. Henry asks, are you sure? Understanding means changing everything, not some things, everything. Most people would rather keep doing what they have been doing than change everything. Marcus thinks about the conference room, the attorney, the billionaire's tax bill. Marcus says, I am sure. 3 words. The same weight as Henry's 3 questions before touching the bonus. Marcus has never said, I am sure about a financial decision with this kind of certainty. Until now. 5 years of divergence on one timeline. Marcus barely moved. Henry compounded. Same starting salary. Different system. The gap is not about earning more. It is about which structure your money moves through after you earn it. Marcus looks at the conference room building with different eyes now. He understands why nobody was surprised. They all operate inside the same 4-box system. The system was not secret. It was just never drawn on a napkin for the people it would most benefit. Marcus copies the 4 boxes into his notebook, carefully, deliberately, not because he will forget, but because writing it himself is the beginning of it becoming his. The diagram goes from something Henry showed him to something Marcus is building toward. Same city, same hour. Henry's system is running. Property income, compounding assets, growing portfolio. Marcus has 4 boxes in a notebook. The gap is real. But Marcus is facing the right direction for the first time. That changes what the next 5 years look like. The door was never locked. The system was never secret. It was just never shown to Marcus until a Wednesday lunch and a paper napkin. Section 2, Marcus walks through the door and discovers that understanding the system and living inside it are 2 completely different things. Marcus and Henry, same city, same salary when they started. Now, finally, facing the same direction. Henry 3 years ahead inside the system. Marcus at the beginning of entering it. Section 2 is where the real cost of the gap becomes clear and where the system starts to show what it can actually build. Marcus walks toward the system. For boxes, 2 arrows, a napkin. The system that makes the rich richer was never hidden. It was just never shown to the people who needed it most. Section 2, the cost of entering, and what gets built on the other side. The more I earned, the further behind I felt, and I could not figure out why. Every year I earned more, but the number in my account never moved proportionally. Something was draining it faster than I could feel it. I was running faster on the same treadmill, more effort, same position, and I had no idea why. My costs were rising every year. Henry's income was rising too, but it was coming from a property he bought and never sold. He wasn't working for it. The income from his first property funded a second position. The second funded a third. He hadn't increased his working hours in 2 years. While I was grinding, Henry was resting. His assets were doing the work. He had become optional in his own income. We met for dinner. I was visibly frustrated. I earn more than I ever have, and the gap between us is still widening. I needed answers. I said it out loud. I work harder than you. I earn more than I used to. So why does it feel like you are pulling away from me? Henry said, it is not about what you earn. It is about what structure you earn it through. That one sentence stopped me completely. He laid out the framework, assets, leverage, tax structure, and time, for things working together in a loop. This is the system the wealthy use. And nobody teaches it to the people it would hurt to teach. I pushed back. I told him the system is rigged, that the deck is stacked, that people like us were never meant to win this game. Henry agreed. The table is tilted. He didn't argue that. Then he said something that hit differently. There's a difference between complaining about a tilted table and learning to play on one. You cannot flatten the table, but you can learn where to stand on it. That was the shift he was asking me to make. My lifestyle costs were rising, and I needed to keep working to cover them. Henry's passive income was rising, and work was becoming optional for him. Same year, different structures. Late nights staring at numbers that did not add up, working harder every month, and still feeling like the ground beneath me was softer than it should have been. Every time I reset, Henry continued. His staircase had no gaps. Mine kept breaking and restarting from a lower point each time. Henry leaned forward and drew something on a napkin. Paycheck goes to asset first. Then lifestyle gets what is left. That is the one move. That is the whole system compressed into one habit. I stared at that napkin, and something hit me that I was not ready for. It was so obvious, so simple, and nobody had ever told me. How many years had I lost doing it the other way around? Lifestyle first, asset never. The cost of that order was sitting right in front of me for the first time. My entire adult life, I had the order wrong. Lifestyle first, asset never. Henry had it right from the beginning. Asset first, lifestyle for what remains. For the first time, I was being asked to choose the asset before the lifestyle. It felt uncomfortable because it was the opposite of everything I had always done. He showed me what the timeline actually looked like. Year 1, 1 asset. Year 3, 2. Year 5, 3 generating income, each one funding the next. Time doing the heavy lifting. My timeline was a loop. Paycheck, spend, empty, restart. No asset ever appeared. No income ever compounded. Just the same cycle repeating itself year after year. Something shifted at that table. I stopped arguing. I stopped defending. And for the first time in conversation, I just listened. He leaned forward and said, "One move, just one, your next paycheck. Put the asset first. Everything else follows from that single decision." I sat there and felt something I was not expecting. Not excitement, not motivation. A specific kind of sick feeling because it was so obvious and nobody had ever told me before. I held that napkin like it was the most important thing anyone had ever handed me, because in that moment I walked out of that dinner differently than I walked in. Not fixed, not transformed, but I was holding something real for the first time, and I knew exactly what I had to do next. I sat at my desk and wrote 2 words. Asset first. Not a plan, not a resolution. A decision, the kind that does not need to be revisited. The decision was made. The first move was clear. Section 3 is where we find out what happens when you finally stop doing it wrong, and what it costs you if you wait too long to start doing it right. 5 years later, everything looked different. Not perfect, not overnight, but different in ways the old version of me would not have believed possible. Same person, same city, same starting point. The only thing that changed was the order. Asset first, lifestyle second. And that single change had been compounding quietly for 5 years. It did not happen fast. Year 1 was 1 small asset. Year 2, slightly more. By year 5, 3 positions generating income, each one funding the next. Exactly the way Henry had drawn it on that napkin. The desk looked the same, but everything on it had changed. The bills were gone. The upward graph was real. And that notebook still open to the same 2 words that started all of it. Henry's position 5 years forward was something else entirely. His assets were now generating more monthly income than most people earn working full-time, and he had not increased his hours in years. We sat down for the final conversation. No frustration this time. No resistance. Just 2 people who had both arrived at different points on the same road, ready to talk about the full picture. Henry laid out the full system for components: income structure, asset accumulation, leverage, and tax positioning. For things the wealthy use automatically. For things most people never learn. Income structure. The wealthy do not rely on one active income stream alone. They build passive streams that flow whether they work or not. One direction versus continuous flow. That is the first difference. Asset accumulation. Every asset you hold generates returns that fund the next asset, not spending the returns. Deploying them. That is how one asset becomes 3 without increasing your income. Leverage. using a small amount of your own capital to control a much larger asset. The wealthy do not buy everything outright. They use leverage to multiply what their money can reach. Tax positioning. The wealthy do not just earn differently. They route their income through structures that legally reduce what leaves before it reaches them. Same income, completely different amount kept. For components, that was the whole system. And sitting there looking at it, the thing that hit hardest was not how complex it was how simple it was. The system was never hidden. It was always there. The reason most people never access it is not that it is locked away. It is that nobody teaches it to the people who would benefit most from learning it. The people who already use the system have no incentive to explain it. And the people who need it most are never shown where the door is. That is not a conspiracy. That is just how information moves toward those already inside. I thought about that conference room, the one where I first felt it, that something existed I did not understand. Standing there years later, I finally understood what I had been looking at. The version of me in that room years ago had shaking hands and a question he could not name. The version standing there now had the answer. The room had not changed. I had. The system does not make the rich richer by taking from others. It makes them richer by moving differently through the same world everyone else lives in. Same roads, different map. We were not in the same place, but we were finally on the same road. His tree was taller. Mine was growing. And for the first time, I was building something that would not need to be rebuilt. The system was always there. It did not belong to a different class of person. It was not locked behind a door only certain people could open. It was always available. The question was never whether you could access it. The question was never whether you could access it. The question was whether anyone would show you where to look. Now you know where to look. What you do next, that part is yours.